Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be speaking about 5 things we learned from yesterday's game against Manchester City. This is going to be a bit of a different one. We've never tried a video like this before, so if you do enjoy this format, please subscribe to the channel, like it, share it with your friends, and let's get straight into this video. Now first of all, I want to speak about Jota Sarr, because at half-time yesterday I thought he was okay. Generally, I didn't think he was that bad, and as you will have seen in my video as well, I thought he claimed his crosses relatively well. I thought he looked okay in terms of his distribution. He didn't look too bad. But then ultimately, for the remainder of the game, especially the second half, I just thought he was so poor. The Cherky goal, the fourth goal, was pretty poor from him, to be honest. It was quite obvious where Cherky was going to put it. He just didn't get down quick enough. Don't get me wrong, it's a good finish. But ultimately, he just didn't get down quick enough. Didn't really predict where he was going to go, which I think most people could have saw where that ball was going to end up. And then, of course, the Haaland goal, the second Haaland goal. It's just a brilliant bit of work from Rinders, don't get me wrong, absolutely sublime. But generally, the shot stopping there. I mean, Haaland, of course, hits it with a lot of power, and I'm not saying that that's not, difficult to save, because I wouldn't save it probably, do you know what I mean? But equally, it's one of them that's really frustrating because it is a preventable goal. It really is a preventable goal. He's just got nowhere near enough power behind it. He's just got nowhere near enough power behind his shot stopping, and I just think it's flimsy. His hands are just poppadom hands, as Gary Neville would say. I just think it was pretty poor from him generally yesterday, and like I say, I don't think he was absolutely awful in the first half, and it's quite frustrating because I've been so heavily critical of Jota Sarr, but I've been one person who said, do you know what? He's not one of the issues that Wolves need to address this summer. He's not, because ultimately there's so much they've still got to do in the transfer market. But ultimately, Jota Sarr is not going to be good enough, and if Wolves want to stay in this division, they're going to need Jota Sarr to up his performances for the rest of the season, and they're also going to need a goalkeeper ready to come in, I think, next summer, to be honest, potentially in January, but I don't think that'll happen. But equally, again, if Jota Sarr gets injured, you're looking at Dan Bentley, you're looking at Sam Johnson, who's somehow still around the club, and obviously Tom King's left the club now, so it's going to be a real tough one for sort of replacements and depth and stuff like that with regards to Jota Sarr. But yesterday, I thought I think he was a good point to touch on, really, because as I said, it didn't feel like he was that bad in the first half. And then you go and watch it, and I've gone and watched it back this morning just with a more level, sort of headed approach, and I just don't think he was very good whatsoever. As you can see, he had one claim, so he's got one memorable claim that I could think of that was good, but I did praise him for it. And then as you can see here, it's 5 accurate long balls out of 10, which for Jota Sarr is not terrible, but generally I just thought his shot stopping was so lacklustre. But let's speak about the next point that we learned from yesterday. The next player that I want to highlight is Metsi. One of the most frustrating performances I can remember in recent time, because realistically, he was okay. Like, his actual sort of, willingness to make the runs, willingness to press, off the ball work, that you can never question that from Metsi, ever, in my opinion. That's one thing you can never say about Metsi, that he is. You can't call him lazy. You can't call him not committed. You just can't. I thought his work rate was absolutely sublime again yesterday, and he has been, he's always done that since he's been, arrived in the Premier League, to be honest, and £15 million, I get, is a lot of money for a player that is a workhorse, but ultimately he comes in January, and January signings are always going to be more sort of expensive, especially when he was one of the more important players for Rems last season as well. Now, Metsi for me is one of the most frustrating ones because of how much I was just watching it and thinking, if there was a few tweaks to his game, Wolves have a much better game offensively last night. And it was frustrating because he was offside so consistently. Now, if we look at the stats here, I'm pretty sure it will be 3 offsides, I'd imagine, maybe 4. Yeah, 3 offsides there, as you can see. Now, 3 offsides for me is pretty, dreadful anyway for a player that's 29 years old and has played in that number 10 position now for just under a year now. I obviously didn't play that for Rems, so it takes some time to adapt. But he's 29 years old. As a footballer that age, you should know the offside rule to a good level, to a basic level. To be honest, you should be able to understand the offside rule. And I just think his timing of his runs was so frustrating because he would often make the right run, and he often does make the right run, but ultimately he makes the right run and he makes it off in his offside when he makes it. That is the issue. And Man City often play that high line. They always do. They step up and just catch him offside every single time without fail. Every attack, step up, he's offside. It was similar to Herver, but Herver held his runs really well. It's just the passes towards him weren't that good. But for me, Metsi was, as I've said, brilliant off the ball. He always is. But in terms of the quality on it, he's just nowhere near good enough, in my personal opinion. And his ability or inability to time his runs was one thing that was, really striking and really frustrating, to be honest, to watch. And I can only imagine for you Wolves fans watching this, you probably would have been, screaming at the TV or in the ground, absolutely livid with him because he was so obviously offside in every single one of them. And I just think that's something that he's definitely got to work on, especially in the big games when he will be playing more often than Fer Lopez, which somewhat controversially perhaps, because I think Fer Lopez has got he's definitely got the ability to stay on side. He's played number 10, all his sort of youth career and all since a kid, really. But in terms of he's got that quality on the ball, he can time his runs. And, I mean, he's less powerful, but he's technically secure, and he looked okay. He looked very good when he came on again, and I was surprised that he didn't come on at half-time, to be honest, having watched Metsi's first half performance. But I think Wolves would have offered a bit more if the subs would have come on earlier, and that's the point we're going to speak about next. Now, the next point we're going to speak about is the substitutions. And for me, it was a frustrating one watching it. Now, all of the subs come on with about 18 to 20 minutes to go, and it's one of them, again, really frustrating because I thought all of the subs, other than probably Hwang, made a big difference. So certainly an impact to an extent. And I think Hugo Bueno looked really good when he came on. I thought he looked sharp, and I thought the same when he came on in the Celta Vigo friendly that I was at the other day as well. I thought he looked sharp there, and I don't think that, I think Wolves could have done worse than starting him, to be honest. But Müller-Wolfer obviously is going to be the player they're going to double down on, given the fact that they've spent £10 million on him when they've already got Bueno at the club. So Müller-Wolfer is going to be the starter. But for me, Hugo Bueno really impressed me. Not like I'm not saying he's ridiculously good, but I think in terms of his performance and how much of an impact he made when he come on, I think he looked sharper. I think he looked a bit quicker. I think he looked more willing to go forward. But of course, that is easy to do when your team's 3 or 4-0 down. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot easier to look good when you don't have as much responsibility on you. You just simply have to try and get a goal or try and get a bit of belief and instill a bit of belief into the crowd. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it was an unbelievable performance, but I thought he had made a tangible difference when he come on. Fer Lopez, for me, briefly touched on him. I thought he was really, really decent when he come on. Thought he made a fair bit happen, to be honest, in the time he was on. Obviously gets that shot away, gets a corner, gets on the ball a lot with technical quality as well, and looks comfortable in possession, looks assured in possession. And for me, again, I think he probably starts against Bournemouth, to be honest. And I would start him, and I'd also consider looking at Bueno against Bournemouth. But again, you need a defensively solid player, so Bueno maybe not that against, Antoine Semenyo, to be honest. I do think Müller-Wolfer's attribute as a physical specimen will benefit him more playing against Antoine Semenyo for Bournemouth. But for me, Fer Lopez, I would play against Bournemouth. I thought he looked really decent when he come on, and I've really been a fan of him throughout pre-season. I know he's been quite controversial because he hasn't offered a hell of a lot in terms of actual contributions to goals, but for me, I like him a lot, and I would be playing him, especially in those games when, Metsi is one of them for the bigger games, I think, even though he is frustrating. But I do think Fer Lopez will be that player that consistently plays throughout the season if he carries on performing whenever he does come on or get the chance. John Arias, for me, I've seen a lot of people in my comments praising him. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he was bad, but I don't think he did a hell of a lot either. So I don't think it's one of them that you can come on and say, oh, do you know what, he was absolutely unbelievable today. I don't think it's one of them. But for me, I think he's got to be starting. You're not going to spend £15 million on John Arias and not play him. It's just as simple as that. You're just not going to do that. So why on earth he wasn't playing yesterday or didn't come on even towards the 60th, the 55th minute, sort of earlier on, trying to make something happen, grow into the game a bit is a bit beyond me, to be honest. But as I say, just a very weird one. Again, I thought Bellegarde was okay for the first 20 minutes of the first half, but other than that, didn't really do a hell of a lot, to be honest. And then Rodrigo Gomez for Hervé. I thought Hervé was very decent yesterday. And that sounds mad, but I do think Hervé's one of these players that everyone has an agenda against. And I've said it so many times. Even when Hervé plays well, or if Hervé plays well, you won't hear anything about it. But if Rodrigo Gomez plays well, or even looks like he's doing something exciting, it'll be all this massive loving for Rodrigo Gomez, when realistically, he's no better than Hervé defensively, and actually offensively, you could argue he's not either, to be honest. But I just thought Rodrigo Gomez didn't do a hell of a lot, and I think Hervé's been hard done by, to be honest, the way he's been treated and spoken about throughout pre-season. Because yesterday, I thought he was fine. Doku offered absolutely nothing on that left-hand side against him. As I've said, Doku's a player that's, all bark, no bite, and he'll pass it back to the left-back. That is as simple as Jeremy Doku is, and I thought he defended him really well. And generally, I don't think Hervé was one of the players that people can single out yesterday and go, he was poor, because he just wasn't. It just couldn't be further from the truth, in my personal opinion. But obviously, people have got their agendas and the fact they don't like him. So, run with that if you want to. But for me, you're not going to get any of that over here. And then Hwang Hee-chan, again, didn't do a hell of a lot. Made a few okay runs. You think of that one when he runs into the right channel and picks up the ball and tries to make things happen. But didn't do a hell of a lot. I think Hwang's one of them that it's just a bit of a weird sort of thing for him to be staying around, but ultimately they've got to find a suitor for him at the value they value him at, and I just don't think that's going to happen. But that's covering the substitutes, really. I want to know what you thought about the subs. I thought they were a bit too late, to be honest, but I did think there was promising signs in there. Now, the fourth point is Emmanuel Agadoo by himself. Now, I've spoken about Agadoo numerous times throughout pre-season. In every pre-season game, he has concerned me. Now, it's all well and good saying that pre-season doesn't matter, and I completely echo that sentiment usually. But when you've watched the pre-season that he's had, I don't see how people cannot be remotely concerned by him. I think he's looked so laboured on the ball. I put a tweet out yesterday. You can check my Twitter in the description as well. It's just Connor Talks Football over there. And I said similar. You know, he's one of these players that just looks very laboured, very relaxed. And people will use it as this like they talk about him like it's the Van Dijk type thing where he just plays the game like it's too easy. But it's not that. It is really frustrating to watch sometimes. And it has been this season. It looked all right last season when he was doing it. And Wolves hit a run, a good patch of form. And they were going on winning games, winning 6 in a row, stuff like that. He looked good. He defended his box really well last season as well. But for me, Agadoo was massively concerning throughout pre-season. And I said in those pre-season videos, I hope he doesn't come into the season and play like that. And he did yesterday. His passing was, quite frankly, diabolical. And I'm not someone who's very negative, as I say, about players. I don't like singling out players. But for me, his passing was absolutely dreadful. His decision-making, dreadful. His actual defending, pretty dreadful, to be honest. And as a centre-back in that back five, it is your role to just sweep everything up. He did. I think he made a few clearances. I think he made 3 or 4 in the game, which is okay, to be fair. But in general, I just don't think he did any of the roles that were asked of him. I just thought his passing was laboured, giving it to players when they've got 2 men on them. His long passing, but just poor again. And that's not something I'd typically say about Agadoo. But throughout pre-season, we saw it against Celta Vigo as well. He was just hitting and hoping balls into Strand Larsen, or hitting and hoping balls out wide to Lopez or Arias. Like it just feels a bit strange to me personally. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's all of a sudden terrible. I'm not. But he does need to fix up and fix his whatever's going on, because ultimately his performances haven't been anywhere near good enough in pre-season. And yesterday I thought he was the worst player on the pitch by some distance personally. I know that might seem controversial, but I thought he was absolutely woeful. And as I've said, when you are as vital to the team as Emmanuel Agadoo is, you have to step up, you have to be useful, especially in those games when you've got such attacking talent running at you and taking you on and wanting to beat you and playing the ball around the edge of the box. You've got to be a lot better. And for me, Agadoo was absolutely miles off it yesterday. But let's get into the 5th and final point. The 5th and final point is the fact that Rinders is better than Modric, Xavi, Iniesta, all of them not combined. Now, in all seriousness, he's not, of course, but he was just an absolute joke, wasn't he? Just an absolute joke. His pre-assist is outrageous for Haaland's first goal. His assist is outrageous for Haaland's second goal. The way he moves through midfield, just glides through midfield. He is absolutely exceptional. And to be fair, it surprised me that he was 27. Like I've watched Rinders for a long time, but he doesn't play like a 27-year-old. He's got that like youthful sort of exuberance about him, really, and he is very positive and plays the game in a very front-footed way, really. And I thought he was absolutely sublime yesterday. I mean, in terms of performances and debut performances, it's right up there with one of the best debuts I've ever seen in my lifetime in the Premier League. Genuinely, I thought he was a joy to watch, and I think most Wolves fans that are at the game will tell you that. And let me know your thoughts on him as well, Wolves fans, because he is just ridiculous, isn't he? I mean, his passing, crisp, sharp, accurate. He's got a long pass, he's got a short pass, he's got a diag, he's got everything. And I've said this in my video about him, I think it was about 3 or 4 months ago when he about 3 months ago, I think, or 2 months ago, when he signed for Manchester City, that he would be a joke of a signing, and he absolutely will be. He's a goal threat. He's defensively, he works his socks off to track back, and against that midfield yesterday, against Andre and João Gomez, it really isn't an easy midfield to play against, and I didn't think either of them were particularly bad, especially João Gomez. But again, Tierney Reinders just took it in it with aplomb and just said, do you know what, lads? No challenge for me. I'll just walk through you. I'll just waltz through you. I'll play any pass I want. I'll do any little dribble I want. I'll take on who I want. I'll get a goal if I want. I'll do anything. And his finish is outrageous as well, because I actually think the pass from Oscar Bob isn't that good. It's a bit away from him, and he's got a lot of work to do to put it in the far corner. But for me, again, Jota Sarr could do better and probably should do better. But again, Tierney Reinders, take nothing away from that performance. As a neutral, I thought he was an absolute joke. And as you know, I'm a Liverpool fan. I don't want to see Manchester City do well. And I actually don't think they were that good yesterday as an overall team, which sounds mad considering they won 4-0. But they didn't really get out of second gear. And Tierney Reinders was absolutely the best player on the pitch yesterday. He was absolutely sensational. And that sounds mad again because Haaland scored 2, but Tierney Rinders was an absolute joy to watch, and I'm going to have a lot of fun watching him this season because, as much as I'm a Liverpool fan, I would love to see him have a good season because I've always liked Tierney Rinders as a player, and I think he's a top player. So let me know what you think about Tierney Rinders, Wolves fans. Let me know what you think about the 5 points we spoke about in this video as well. I think they're all more than valid. I'd love to know your thoughts on them though as well, because I know some of you do disagree with me quite often, which is fair enough. You're entitled to your own opinion, but I see it differently to you because I'm not emotionally invested in Wolves, of course. Thank you all for watching. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment below what you thought, and I'll see you in the next one.